The sun rose over Nevada's Red Rock Canyon, like a painting fiery orange skies casting long shadows over the towering cliffs and sandstone peaks. Ryan Mitchell and Jessica Lane, both in their early 30s, were experienced hikers and avid nature lovers who had driven in from Phoenix for what they called a digital detox weekend. They wanted to disconnect from work, phones, and city stress. Red Rock Canyon, with its maze of trails and hidden caves, seemed like the perfect place to do it. That morning, they stopped at a local cafe for breakfast and even joked with the barista about not getting eaten by mountain lions. Everything about the day felt lighthearted, easy, even magical. Before heading onto the trail, Jessica uploaded a final Instagram story, a video of Ryan pretending to fall off a rock while she laughed behind the camera. The timestamp read 9:47 a.m. 25 minutes later, a hiker passing near the Calico Tanks trailhead spotted the couple heading toward a lesser-known side trail that veered off the official path. They were holding hands, chatting, and appeared to be in good spirits. This would be the last confirmed sighting of them alive. As noon approached, the desert heat intensified, but they never returned. Park rangers typically see many hikers come and go throughout the day, and it wasn't unusual for visitors to explore extended loops. But by evening, their car still sat untouched in the trailhead lot. The temperature began to drop drastically. A cold wind picked up, rustling dry brush and sending a strange stillness through the canyon, as if the desert itself knew something was wrong. When Ryan's sister tried calling around 6:45 p.m. and got no answer, she assumed they were out of signal range. But by 9:30 p.m., concern turned to dread. Texts went unanswered. Calls went straight to voicemail. Jessica's parents tried to track her phone but found it offline. Ryan's smartwatch stopped syncing with his health app at exactly 11:19 a.m., less than an hour after they were last seen by the following morning. Red Rock's early light revealed the same quiet landscape untouched and undisturbed. Rangers found the couple's silver Subaru still locked in the lot. Inside were 2 water bottles, sunglasses, an untouched sandwich in a cooler, and Jessica's paperback novel, folded neatly at chapter 5. But there were no signs of distress, no broken windows, no missing items. Just a strange and growing silence, as if the desert had swallowed them whole. When search efforts began the following morning, the couple's silver Subaru Crosstrek was still parked exactly where rangers had first noticed it, neatly backed into a shaded spot near the Calico Basin trailhead. Nothing about it seemed out of place at first glance, but the longer authorities looked, the stranger it became. Their hiking permits were still visible on the dashboard. Both their phones were missing, but Jessica's leather-bound journal sat open in the glove box, her handwriting abruptly ending mid-sentence. The air inside the vehicle was stifling with desert heat, yet the food cooler remained unopened, as if they'd planned a short hike and expected to return within hours. The absence of chaos made everything more unsettling. There was no broken glass, no drag marks near the car, no signs of forced entry or foul play. Jessica's sun hat, which she almost always wore on hikes, was left on the passenger seat. Even her lip balm was in the cup holder, detail her sister later said would never have been left behind. Search and rescue officials noted the oddly peaceful condition of the scene. But that peace only added to the disturbing silence around the couple's sudden vanishing. Something was off, but no one could put their finger on what. Calls to Ryan's and Jessica's phones continued to go straight to voicemail. Both devices had either been powered off or destroyed. Park rangers initiated a formal search operation within hours, but with limited daylight left, the first day yielded nothing. That night, both families drove in from Phoenix, their faces pale with dread. Jessica's mother clutched a photo of her daughter and kept asking, "What if someone took them?" Ryan's father said something quieter, almost to himself. "What if they saw something they weren't supposed to?" No one responded. Over the next 48 hours, professional search teams and volunteers flooded the area, more than 90 people in total. With helicopters scanning overhead and K9 units sniffing the arid trails below, rangers retraced every official route and even began exploring unofficial side paths, narrow ridges and cavernous drop-offs. Still, nothing. No pieces of clothing. No camping gear. Not even a misplaced granola wrapper. It was as if Ryan and Jessica had walked into the desert and evaporated. The dogs picked up no scent beyond 300 feet from the trailhead. Then nothing. The couple's disappearance was soon reported in local news, though oddly, it never gained national attention. A few amateur investigators on Reddit began building maps, tracking satellite images, and comparing search patterns with missing persons databases. Some pointed out that Red Rock Canyon is home to dozens of unmapped cave systems areas, so remote and dangerous that even rangers avoid them. Others insisted it had to be foul play, citing the strange fact that not a single personal belonging had been recovered, and yet, through it all, the car sat motionless under the desert sun, quietly guarding its secrets, just feet away from a trail that should have led the couple safely home. Red Rock Canyon, with its vast stretches of stone and jagged formations, has always held an air of mystique. Locals often speak of how the canyon breathes, how the winds shift suddenly, whispering down the rock corridors like voices carried on dust. In the days following Ryan and Jessica's disappearance, that eerie feeling only deepened. Despite the scale of the search efforts, the desert seemed to fight back. Temperatures swung wildly. Dust storms rose out of nowhere, and narrow trails that looked promising lead only to dead ends and sheer drop-offs. Even seasoned rangers admitted it was like the terrain was working against them. By the end of the first week, not a single clue had surfaced. The couple hadn't signed any secondary trail logs, no campground records, no sightings beyond that first hiker's report. Helicopter scans with thermal imaging picked up only rocks radiating the day's heat. Volunteers combed the washes and arroyos, hoping to find anything that might lead to closure. But the deeper they went, the stranger things began to feel. A few searchers reported hearing distant echoes, whispers, footfalls that weren't theirs. One man even claimed he saw movement atop a ledge, only for it to vanish the moment he raised his binoculars. As frustration set in, theories began to spiral. Could the couple have fallen into one of the canyon's many hidden crevices? Red Rock is riddled with narrow fissures and sinkholes, some of which are nearly impossible to spot unless you're standing inches from the edge. A misstep could mean plunging dozens of feet down into a place no one would ever find. Yet, with no signs of a fall, no scuffs, no broken gear, no vultures circling overhead, this explanation, too, began to seem inadequate. It felt like the desert itself was erasing their path, wiping away all evidence of where they'd gone. Among the search teams were a few old desert hands, retired geologists and backcountry experts who had spent years mapping and exploring the region. Even they were baffled. One quietly remarked to a ranger, "There are places out here we still haven't charted. Places that don't show up on the maps, and maybe weren't meant to." Though said half in jest, the words left a chill. Others began to whisper about ancient petroglyph sites and native legends tied to the land tales of shadow canyons that led nowhere. Or worse, two places people entered but never returned from. Online forums lit up with speculation. Some users pointed out that over the past 15 years, 7 other hikers had vanished in or near Red Rock under similar circumstances. No remains, no equipment, no leads. The canyon had a pattern. But none of those cases had involved a couple disappearing together. That's what made this one different, and more disturbing. 2 experienced hikers. One bright, clear morning, and no reason at all for them to disappear unless, of course, they had ventured into something hidden, something the desert had been keeping to itself all along. It was nearly a full year after Ryan and Jessica vanished when a new lead emerged, one that ignited a brief flicker of hope, then plunged the case into even deeper mystery. A solo hiker named Emilio Vargas, an experienced climber who often explored off-grid routes, came forward after discovering something strange while scaling an uncharted ridge deep inside Red Rock. He claimed he had stumbled upon a series of red symbols, painted crudely on a flat rock face, in an area miles from any marked trail. The markings weren't typical graffiti. They were deliberate, odd geometric shapes, spirals, and one symbol that looked eerily like an eye. One set of initials was also scratched into the rock. RJ double quotes. Vargas snapped a few photos with his phone and sent them to the local ranger station. But when a team returned to the site 2 days later, the symbols were gone. A rare but intense desert rainstorm had swept through the area the night before, washing away the fragile red pigment. Some of the rocks had shifted, and even the initials seemed to have faded or been eroded by time. Critics were quick to dismiss the entire incident as a hoax or misinterpretation, but others weren't so sure. When the photos were enhanced and shared with a small group of independent investigators, several claimed the symbols bore a resemblance to ancient petroglyph patterns. Specifically, ones associated with warning or danger in certain Native American cultures. What troubled investigators more was the location of the markings. The area Vargas had wandered into wasn't listed on any tourist maps. It was known informally, by locals as the Silent Cut, a name derived from its strange acoustic properties, a narrow channel between cliffs where sound seems to vanish completely, even loud shouts become whispers. Radios often fail there. Hikers say the place is disorienting and unnatural. No official trails lead into the Silent Cut, and park rangers generally discourage visitors from heading that far out, citing safety concerns and unstable rock conditions. But Ryan and Jessica, being experienced explorers, could have easily found their way there, especially if curious about side paths. For the families, the possibility that the couple had left behind a message, or signal, even a symbolic one, was devastating. It meant they might have been alive for longer than initially believed. That they might have tried to communicate, to leave a trail for someone to find. Jessica's sister said in an interview, "If those initials were real, if she wrote that, she was trying to tell us something, but with the symbols gone and the terrain too unstable for regular access, investigators hit another wall." No other traces were found in the area, and the Silent Cut remained as cryptic as ever, a place that seemed to take more than it gave. Online theorists jumped on the revelation. Some believed the couple had found something ancient, a cave, a site, or even a ritual location, and were either trapped or intentionally kept from returning. Fringe theories included secret desert experiments, lost civilizations, and paranormal entities linked to petroglyph sites. One Reddit user claimed the symbols matched those found in a now-closed government case file from the 1980s. The post was deleted hours later. Whether coincidence or conspiracy, the discovery of the red markings cast a long shadow over the case. It suggested the couple had gone farther, deeper, and had seen something they were never meant to. Exactly for years to the day after Ryan and Jessica vanished. The morning air over Red Rock Canyon was unusually cold for late September. Dana Wilson, a local schoolteacher and avid trail runner, had arrived just after sunrise for her usual weekend jog. She preferred the quieter paths, often weaving through old horse trails and rarely used ridgelines. That morning, she veered off course slightly, drawn by a new loop she hadn't tried before, one that dipped through a narrow ravine behind a cluster of red boulders. It was there, on the edge of a dry creek bed, that she saw something strange. Sticking out of the dirt. At first, she thought it was just a weathered piece of trash, an old shoe, maybe, but as she got closer, her steps slowed. It wasn't just a shoe. It was a sun-bleached hiking boot, the tread worn but intact, half buried beneath layers of sand and crumbling shale. What made her stop cold wasn't just the boot itself. It was the faded socks still inside, and the unmistakable glint of something plastic wedged beneath it. Reaching down with a trembling hand, Dana uncovered the corner of a small, dust-covered GoPro camera. Partially smashed but still intact. She knew the moment was important, possibly even historic. Shaken, she called it in immediately. Park rangers arrived within the hour, quickly sealing off the area. The boot was a perfect match to a pair Ryan had been wearing in one of the couple's last social media posts. The camera, battered and corroded by sun and sand, was sent to forensic techs who worked tirelessly to extract what data they could. For the first time in years, the families had something tangible, something real, hold on to, and what they would soon uncover would send shockwaves through both the Pepitid investigation and the small online community that had never stopped searching for answers. The GoPro's memory card had been damaged, but a few fragments of video were recoverable. The footage was shaky and silent, no audio survived, but investigators were able to stitch together several clips. One showed Jessica walking ahead of Ryan through a narrow slot canyon, smiling nervously at the camera. Another showed them pausing as if unsure of which path to take. But the final clip, time-stamped at 11:12 a.m., was the most disturbing. Ryan was filming as they stood on a ridge overlooking a strange formation of rocks. In the distance, a hooded figure stood motionless on a ledge above them. The figure didn't wave, didn't move, just stood there. Jessica turned to the camera, mouthing something. Analysts believe she was saying, "He's still there." And then the footage cuts abruptly. No scream, no chaos, just a sudden end to what might have been their final moment. The next 3 hours of data on the card were unrecoverable, corrupted, likely by heat or deliberate damage. No trace of the hooded figure was ever found, and no further footage emerged. The families were devastated. The discovery raised more questions than it answered. Who was the figure? Were they being followed? Were they running from something or someone? Whatever the truth was, one thing became clear. Ryan and Jessica had seen something in those canyons. And whatever it was, it hadn't let them go. The forensic team working on the GoPro's corrupted memory card operated in near silence. Every pixel of recovered video was painstakingly restored, frame by frame, by specialists who had worked on high-profile missing persons cases before, but nothing quite like this. The card had suffered extensive damage, likely from years of exposure to extreme heat, moisture, and fine desert dust. Yet, miraculously, a small segment survived. The final sequence, just over 3 minutes long, offered the first real glimpse into what might have happened to Ryan and Jessica. And what it showed was chilling. The footage opens with Ryan's face reflected dimly in the GoPro's lens. His voice is lost to time, but his expression is tense. Behind him, the landscape looms rust-colored cliffs, rising high above narrow canyon paths. Then the camera turns to Jessica, who looks anxious and keeps glancing over her shoulder. At one point, she motions for the camera to lower, clearly uncomfortable. In the distance, the lens captures a blurry silhouette on a ridge, standing absolutely still. The figure is cloaked, indistinct, and unmoving like a statue carved from shadow. Despite the distance, something about its posture is unnatural, alert, watching. Frame analysis confirmed what experts feared. This wasn't another hiker. The figure wore no visible hiking gear, and its outline was oddly rigid. Some believed it might have been wearing a mask or head covering. Others pointed out that it never shifted weight or moved even when the couple began walking away. In one zoomed-in frame, Jessica appears to mouth. He's still there, her eyes wide with panic. The couple picks up speed. The footage jolts with rapid movement, likely them running. The final clear frame is chaotic. The camera swings wildly. Dust flies past the lens, and something metallic clatters in the background. Then, silence. The screen goes black. The rest of the footage, nearly 3 hours worth, was nothing but digital static. Corrupted beyond recovery. It was as if the device had been intentionally wiped, or the environment had distorted the data in a way forensic experts couldn't explain. But that brief clip was enough to reignite the investigation. Authorities began revisiting every inch of Red Rock Canyon, focusing on high ridgelines and isolated crevices that could have provided a vantage point for the hooded observer. Yet no footprints, no fibers, no traces of recent human activity were discovered in that specific area, even though Ryan and Jessica clearly had been there. The implications disturbed even hardened detectives. Who or what was following them? Was it a stalker, a recluse living off-grid in the canyon? Or had the couple unknowingly trespassed into forbidden territory? Some investigators quietly raised another possibility. They weren't being watched by chance. They were being hunted. The presence of a camera suggests they had sensed danger before the footage was taken. Why else would Ryan be filming it that moment unless something had already happened before that? Why else would Jessica be so visibly on edge? The footage didn't just confirm a presence, it confirmed a threat. Despite renewed efforts and public interest sparked by the GoPro footage, no further evidence ever surfaced. Not a scrap of clothing, not a bone fragment, not a trace of Ryan or Jessica's physical presence. It was as if the desert had claimed them completely. Yet, something lingered, something unseen but deeply felt. Rangers began reporting strange occurrences in the weeks after the footage became public. A drone operator conducting a second sweep of the ravine, where the boot had been found, experienced a sudden loss of GPS signal, despite flying in an area with previously stable reception. By the time connection was re-established, the drone had veered nearly a mile off course and was hovering over a high cliff ledge, right where the hooded figure had last been spotted. Hikers started coming forward with disturbing anecdotes. One man claimed he saw a tall figure standing motionless atop a distant boulder, only for it to vanish when he raised his phone to take a picture. A couple camping off the main loop trail said they were woken in the middle of the night by footsteps circling their tent, crunching slowly in the gravel, over and over. Yet when they stepped outside, they found nothing but silence and undisturbed ground. Perhaps most chilling of all was the story of a woman who said she followed what she thought was another solo hiker in a gray hoodie for over 20 minutes, only to realize the path had grown silent, and the figure had somehow disappeared completely, leaving no prints behind. Red Rock Canyon's reputation began to change. Long considered a destination for tourists, climbers, and photographers, the area gradually became the focus of darker whispers. Locals started referring to the ravine where the GoPro was found as Dead Trail, an unofficial name that spread through forums and late-night conversations like wildfire. Rangers denied any supernatural explanations but subtly redirected tourists away from that section of the park. Still, the curious came. Urban explorers, paranormal investigators, a handful of thrill-seekers most returned, but not all of them did. What terrified those closest to the case the most, however, was the lack of closure. Ryan and Jessica were never declared officially dead. Their case remains open, unsolved. There were no ransom notes, no signs of voluntary disappearance, no financial activity after the day they vanished. Jessica's mother once said in an interview, "It's like they stepped off the path and fell out of the world." The families, unable to grieve properly, began to receive anonymous postcards blank, save for the printed words "You looked too long" on the front, postmarked from nearby towns. Investigators believe they were hoaxes. But the timing around the anniversary was hard to ignore, and through it all, the canyon remains towering, silent, and indifferent. People still hike there, the trails still carry footprints, but every now and then, someone notices a shape in the distance that wasn't there a moment before. A sudden gust of cold wind in the heat. A whisper when no one is around. And though most chalk it up to nerves or imagination, those who know the story remember, not everything lost in Red Rock is truly gone. Some things vanish, and some are still watching. So what really happened to Ryan and Jessica in the depths of Red Rock Canyon? Were they stalked by someone hiding in the desert's forgotten corners? Did they stumble upon something ancient, something meant to stay buried? Or did the canyon, vast and silent, simply swallow them whole like it has so many before? We may never know the full truth. But one thing is certain, Red Rock still holds its secrets. And sometimes the missing aren't gone. Sometimes they're just waiting in the shadows, watching.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.